His identity was Agent Malik Johnson, a highly regarded FBI investigator recognized for his steadfast resolve and composed demeanor. He had dedicated years to instructing fellow agents on navigating perilous confrontations, yet on that specific Tuesday evening, it was he who found himself on the receiving end of the badge. What commenced as a straightforward journey home concluded with widespread video dissemination, public outcry, and a lawsuit amounting to $2 million, which compelled the department to fundamentally alter its operational protocols. Before we proceed further, kindly share from what part of the globe you are observing this and ensure you subscribe, because the narrative for tomorrow is one you absolutely will not want to miss. Malik had just concluded an extensive day of scrutinizing evidence in a federal fraud investigation. It was approximately 7:45 in the evening when he joined the interstate heading towards his residence in the suburban area. The sky was bathed in a warm, golden hue, and vehicle traffic was sparse. His dark-colored SUV maintained a consistent velocity precisely at the designated speed limit. He was no longer preoccupied with his professional duties, instead envisioning a tranquil evening with his family. However, presently, in his rearview mirror, the intermittent flashing of red and blue lights became apparent. Initially, Malik harbored no apprehension. He was confident in his adherence to all regulations. His vehicle's registration was up to date, its lighting systems were functioning optimally, and he was not prone to speeding. Nevertheless, he meticulously followed every protocol instilled during his training. He activated his turn signal, decelerated, and safely positioned his vehicle on a well-illuminated shoulder adjacent to a service station. The law enforcement officer who emerged from the patrol vehicle was identified as Officer Chris Miller, a 5-year veteran of the police force whose disciplinary record Malik was not yet privy to. This record was replete with accusations of excessive force, all of which involved individuals of color. Malik lowered his window, placed both of his hands upon the steering wheel, and awaited further instructions with composure. However, the instant Chris approached, Malik perceived an unsettling shift in the atmosphere. The officer's tone lacked professional decorum. It was overtly hostile. Furthermore, Chris neglected to offer a greeting or elucidate the grounds for the stop. He simply demanded license and registration. Throughout this exchange, his hand remained in close proximity to his sidearm. Malik maintained a placid vocal cadence. He informed the officer that he would first reach for his glove compartment, then retrieve his wallet. Each movement was executed slowly, with deliberate intent and in full view of the officer. This was precisely the manner in which he had advised civilians to conduct themselves during traffic encounters. He presented his vehicle's registration, then produced his wallet. Within its confines were his driver's license and his FBI credentials, clearly displayed. This crucial information should have irrevocably altered the situation. Any competent officer would have recognized Malik's affiliation, offered an apology for the inconvenience, and concluded the interaction courteously. However, contrary to this expectation, the very moment Chris observed the badge, his countenance hardened, his tone became decidedly more abrasive. He issued a direct order for Malik to exit the vehicle. Malik inquired as to the reason for this command. No explanation was provided, only the repetition of the order delivered with increased volume. A second police cruiser arrived, and another officer disembarked. This individual proceeded directly to the passenger side, a flashlight illuminating the interior of Malik's SUV as if actively searching for concealed contraband. Malik exited his vehicle, maintaining his composed and collected demeanor, still endeavoring to de-escalate the situation. He stood there, attired in his professional attire, a dress shirt, tie, and polished footwear, presenting exactly as he was, a federal agent who had simply completed his workday. Yet to Chris, none of these details held any significance. "Place your hands on the hood," Chris commanded gruffly. Malik complied. The subsequent pat-down was performed with unnecessary roughness and was deeply humiliating. The secondary officer commenced a search of Malik's vehicle without explicit permission. Malik clearly stated that he did not consent to any search, but his objections were disregarded. Their efforts yielded no illicit substances, no weaponry, and absolutely nothing unlawful. Malik then calmly informed them that he possessed a service weapon in a secured compartment legally sanctioned. Chris retrieved the firearm, but proceeded as though he had discovered a grave threat rather than a legitimate instrument of protection. By this juncture, individuals at the adjacent service station had begun to record the proceedings. Some were broadcasting the event live. The footage captured by those cameras would ultimately serve to expose the entire incident. As mobile devices were raised, Chris's conduct escalated further in its aggression. His voice grew louder, his facial expression taut. "Turn around and place your hands behind your back," he bellowed. Malik momentarily faltered, stunned. "Officer, I am cooperating," he stated calmly. However, Chris appeared indifferent to his plea. Within moments, Malik experienced the biting sensation of cold metal handcuffs constricting his wrists. A federal agent who had committed no infraction was now being detained on the side of a public thoroughfare, and every observer bore witness to the unfolding reality of the situation. When Malik inquired about the specific offense he was being accused of, Chris responded with a mere 2 words: "Suspicious activity." That was the entirety of the alleged transgression. The assisting officer continued to search Malik's vehicle as if possessing a warrant. They meticulously examined every compartment, sifted through his briefcase, and even attempted to access his FBI work laptop. Malik firmly advised them that it contained classified federal documents, but his warning was ignored until Chris finally instructed his partner to cease their examination of the device. Minutes stretched into nearly an hour. Malik remained seated, handcuffed, in the rear of a police vehicle, his wrists burning, observing strangers capture footage through the windows. Each request he made to contact a supervisor was met with a refusal from Chris. However, those external cameras were poised to become his most compelling witnesses. When the supervising sergeant finally arrived, the dynamics of the encounter shifted significantly. He personally inspected the vehicle. Both taillights were functioning flawlessly. There was, in fact, no legitimate basis for the stop. When he requested an explanation from Chris, the officer altered his account. Initially claiming a malfunctioning light, he then asserted that Malik's SUV bore a resemblance to a vehicle used in a robbery. None of these assertions held any logical coherence. The sergeant engaged in a private discussion with Chris, then approached Malik's vehicle window. Following a telephone conversation that extended for several minutes, he opened the door and declared, "You are free to depart." There was no expression of regret, no clarifying statement, simply those words. Malik looked down at his wrists, noting the red marks and soreness. His vehicle had been thoroughly searched with papers strewn about. He understood with certainty that this was not a simple misunderstanding. It was a clear instance of racial profiling. Yet he also recognized one undeniable fact. On this occasion, they had targeted the incorrect individual. By the following morning, the narrative had already achieved widespread viral distribution. An individual who had recorded the incident uploaded the footage online, explicitly tagging local news organizations. Within a matter of hours, the clip had garnered over 2 million views. The public expressed considerable anger, not only concerning the events that transpired, but also regarding the remarkably composed and professional manner in which Malik navigated the entire ordeal. The comments flooded in, with many stating, "He handled that with grace. That officer should be terminated." This is a daily occurrence that many people fail to acknowledge. Malik did not require any personal defense. The visual evidence spoke with far greater authority than any official report. Prior to noon, FBI headquarters had officially verified his identity, and by the afternoon, the Atlanta Police Department was subjected to intense scrutiny, facing demands for an explanation as to why one of their officers had detained a federal agent without sufficient cause. The chief of police issued a public statement denouncing the officer's conduct as unacceptable and declared it to be under comprehensive review. However, Malik found a televised apology insufficient. He formally lodged a complaint, supported by federal legal counsel, and the subsequent investigation unearthed a disturbing pattern. Officer Chris had a history of numerous prior complaints related to racial profiling, all of which had been deliberately concealed. This time, the involvement of the FBI rendered such a cover-up impossible. Within weeks, Chris was placed on an unpaid suspension, and subsequently, his employment with the department was terminated. The department subsequently faced a civil lawsuit, which culminated in Malik receiving a confidential settlement. He, in turn, chose to allocate these funds to a youth mentorship program situated in Atlanta's Southside community. Nevertheless, the genuine triumph materialized when Malik returned to that very community where he had been subjected to profiling, not as a victim, but as a motivational speaker. He imparted the following message to the young individuals present. Never allow the apprehension of others to dictate your future. Maintain your composure, remain astute, and permit truth to manifest its own validation. The assembled crowd applauded him with the enthusiasm one reserves for a hero, for that is precisely what he embodied, a man who transformed a deeply humiliating experience into a powerful sense of purpose. The video that had once depicted him in handcuffs subsequently became an emblem of resilience. Across every online forum, one particular sentiment was repeatedly echoed. This time, they apprehended the wrong black man. Justice in this instance was not delivered with fanfare. It was characterized by a quiet, unwavering, and enduring impact. If you found yourself in Malik's predicament that evening, would you have maintained your composure or resorted to resistance? Share your perspective in the comment section below and be certain to subscribe, as tomorrow's narrative is one that you will absolutely not want to miss.